Statements by members. Déclaration des députés. The honourable member for Regina Louvain.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We were saddened last week to learn that Paul Dewar, the former MP for Ottawa Centre, has terminal cancer. I met Paul in 2005, shortly after coming to Ottawa to work in the public service. He was a first-time NDP candidate fighting to hold Ottawa Centre after Ed Broadbent retired. I volunteered on the campaign and saw Paul's kindness, generosity, and effectiveness. We were proud to have helped elect him and even prouder of his work as an MP. Paul was a champion for the local community he represented, but also took a much broader view, including a global perspective as foreign affairs critic. Paul gave real meaning to the expression, think globally, act locally, and is doing so again by organizing Youth Action Now to promote grassroots change driven by young people. Please support this initiative by attending the launch at 5 p.m. tomorrow at the National Arts Centre.
The honourable member for North Vancouver.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to commemorate the 60th anniversary of the collapse of the Ironworkers Memorial Bridge connecting the North Shore of Vancouver with the City of Vancouver. On June 17, 1958, a temporary arm holding the fifth span of the bridge collapsed, sending 79 bridge workers into the Burrard Inlet. 19 lost their lives in the accident and 20 more were hospitalized with injuries. This was and remains one of the worst industrial accidents in British Columbia's history. Yesterday, Ironworkers Union Local 97 hosted a memorial at the bridge. In remembering this tragedy, we must also remember all other Canadians across the country who have been injured or killed on the job. We must honour their memory by rededicating ourselves to ensuring that we learn from these tragedies and work to ensure the safety of all work sites going forward.
Honourable member for Simcoe Grey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This summer in Simcoe Grey promises to be full of activities. Graduation ceremonies start this week in the high schools in my riding, and I'm proud to provide one student at each school a name, scholarship in my name for civic involvement. On June 21st, I'll be hosting roundtables to reintroduce the Children's Fitness Tax Credit, which was shamefully cut by the Liberals in their last budget, as well as revisions to the Canada Health Act that will make the government more accountable to patients and take the politics out of healthcare. On July 1st, I look forward to celebrating Canada Day with local leaders like Pam Irwin, Charlie Tatham, Deputy Warden Terry Dowdle, and Jim Wilson, our MPP. The July Elvis Festival in Collingwood draws people from all over the world, and our 45th annual Potato Festival is one that I'll share with great volunteers like Ken Burns. Add to this farmers markets, beach days, and cottage life. I can tell you that life in Simcoe Grey over the summer is going to be outstanding, and I hope that everyone here will enjoy a fabulous summer season. Thank you.
The honourable member for Hamilton West and Castor Dundas.
Mr. Speaker, I am proud and honoured to stand today and recognize my Italian heritage and my father. Both have contributed enormously to the woman that I am today. Growing up in an Italian household taught me the true sense of the words love and hospitality. Mr. Speaker, family is integral to the Italian culture, where love for children, grandchildren, and all family members is second to none. I am immensely proud of our Italian-Canadian community and its incredible contributions to Canada. It is in this spirit, and following this Father's Day weekend, I also recognize my amazing father. Words cannot describe the effect his life, his love, and his support have had on me. I wish to take this opportunity to wish all dads a happy Father's Day. The impact you have on your children and grandchildren lasts generations. Grazie. Thank you.
Yeah. The honourable member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, today my heart is with the Colloquiet people and especially the families of 3 young men lost at sea on Friday off the west coast of Vancouver Island. 2 other lives were saved thanks to local citizens. Dozens of private boats, marine tour operators, crews from all over Vancouver Island, including Victoria, Nanaimo, Arrowsmith, Comox Valley, Port Alberni, assisted local search and rescue, and so many others joined the search. As coastal people, we respond in times like this with compassion and sacrifice, Gas money is raised, food is carried to the dock, local leaders give comfort to the community, and we pull together. Please join me in thanking the first responders and residents of Tofino, Ahousaht, and Heshquit for standing with Cloquet people in this time of need, and to send a prayer and love to the families of the missing and to the many still on the water searching for loved ones.
The honourable member for Scarborough North.
The flag.
Mr. Speaker, last year the residents of Scarborough North celebrated not only Canada's 150th anniversary, but also the 40th anniversary of Woodside Square.
The mall has grown to over 90 retailers and service providers offering outstanding products and customer service. More than just a mall, Woodside is a community hub. For local seniors gathered in the morning, the shopping center provides community Tai Chi classes that benefit the mind, body, and spirit. For children and youth, various shows and activities are organized throughout the year to help keep young minds engaged in positive ways. And for nonprofits like the Center for Immigrant and Community Services, mall patrons have generously donated thousands of dollars for a worthy cause. This June 30th, I invite constituents to join me at Woodside Square for my annual Canada Day weekend barbecue. Today, however, I congratulate Woodside Square on an amazing 40 years, wishing them many more years of success. Merci.
Honourable member for Calgary, Signal Hill.
Mr. Speaker, this past weekend marked the 5th anniversary of the largest natural disaster in the city of Calgary's history. Of course, it was the Great Flood of 2013. Now, contrary to what the Minister of Environment continues to try and tell us, this flood was not caused by climate change. It was caused by a heavy late spring rainfall that melted a large snowpack in the mountains, Mr. Speaker. Now, this particular flood caused billions of dollars of damage, but what it also did is it resulted in thousands of Calgarians helping neighbours in the cleanup. And as a result, Calgary, on the second weekend of June, always celebrates Neighbour Day. That happened this past Saturday, where communities held barbecues, neighbours held block parties. And Mr. Speaker, I would ask Canadians to consider, in cities and communities across the country, to emulate what Calgary has done, because you never know when you're going to need your neighbour's help, Mr. Speaker.
Here, here.
Honourable member for Cumberland Colchester.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Dairy farming and supply management are important to the economy of my riding of Cumberland Colchester in Nova Scotia. I've seen the benefits of supply management firsthand, not just for rural Canadians, but for all Canadians. Consumers across the country enjoy top-quality dairy because of the very high standards placed on our producers. Lately, dairy farmers have raised concerns regarding the future of Canada's supply management system in a renegotiated NAFTA treaty. It's important that supply management is protected in order to preserve the livelihoods of rural Nova Scotians and, in fact, all rural Canadians. I want to assure the farmers of Cumberland Colchester that I stand behind supply management 100%. And I'm proud to be part of a government that's fighting every day to support our dairy farmers and our supply management system. And I want to thank the very distinguished Minister of Agriculture for his tireless commitment to supply management.
The honourable member for Bourassa. Mr. Speaker, today is World Sickle Cell Day, which is also called drepanocytosis. This is the most widespread genetic blood disorder in the world. More than 300,000 children are born each year with the disease. It causes very painful outbreaks that sufferers experience throughout their lives. At present, sickle cell anemia is incurable, but adequate medical care can prevent its effects. I salute the commendable actions by the medical profession and associations working in the field who help parents and children like Megan St. Cloud from Quebec City. I invite all members of this House to throw their support behind this cause to fight sickle cell anemia. Thank you. The honourable member for Mégantic-Clérable. Mr. Speaker, it's always an honor for me to talk about the extraordinary people in Mégantic-l'Érable. And today I'm paying tribute to the municipality of Plessisville. Not only did we host the biggest Relay for Life, but in Plessisville, we also set a record for the largest blood drive in a high school, thanks to the students of the Polyvalente La Samar. On April 30th, 1,091 people responded to the call and gave a gift of life. The response was such that even HEMA Quebec wasn't in a position to accept all the donors. On May 11th, the blood drive was acknowledged internationally at a special ceremony in Dallas, Texas. Congratulations to the students who were greatly inspired by a story from their honorary president, Serge André Tardif. Congratulations to the organizer and mobilizers of the event. Hats off to all the volunteers. Thank you for being with us here today. On behalf of all of my colleagues and all Canadians for whom a blood donation is a gift of life, I congratulate you and I say thank you.
The honourable member for Markham Thornhill.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, recently, I was honored to take part in the opening ceremony of the All Community Games.
And This Land is Your Land among a chorus of young voices at the Bill Carruthers Secondary School to mark the opening of the All Community Games. What an incredible personification of Canada. Regardless of the languages we speak, the cultures we are part of, or the faiths that we practice, in that song and throughout the games, everyone was unified in calling this land home. That is why our government has invested in leveling the playing field so that women and girls, children, youth, and adults with intellectual disabilities, and people in Indigenous communities can participate fully in sport. The All Community Games, a multicultural celebration of athletics and sport, have been led by the passion of Chairman Joseph Fong for the last 14 years. I was honored to be a part of that day. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Edmonton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, Albertans and all Canadians are standing in solidarity today with members of the Muslim community following a cowardly and appalling act of arson against the Edson Mosque. An attack on any place of worship is an attack on the entire faith community. For this attack to come so quickly after the end of the holy month of Ramadan makes it all the more heinous. I know that I speak for this House when I express my gratitude to first responders whose swift actions extinguished the fire quickly. Notre pays est
Diversity is Canada's strength, and members of all communities and all faiths must feel safe and secure in Canada.
Community, to everyone who may be shaken or frightened in light of this attack, know that your government stands with you, your neighbours stand with you, and all Canadians who believe in the strength of our diversity stand with you today and every day. Shukran, Monsieur le Président.
The honourable member for Sturgeon River Parkland.
Mr. Speaker, every morning families across Canada wake up not knowing where the remains of their loved ones are hidden. Convicted killers who conceal the remains of their victims so that the families cannot have closure are committing a despicable crime. One such family, the McCann family, have been waiting nearly 8 years for answers, and they are not alone. They want to know where convicted killer Travis Vader hid their parents' bodies. Mr. Vader will be eligible for parole in just a few short years, without ever having to give a clue as to where he hid the remains of his victims. Families deserve better, and that is why I am working on legislation to ensure that those who refuse to reveal the location of their victims' remains pay the penalty. I hope all parliamentarians will support this legislation to ensure that the families of victims of homicide receive the justice and closure they so rightly deserve. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Charles-Lemoine. Mr. Speaker, I recently had the opportunity to visit HoC, a company in Longueuil-Charles-Lemoine specialized in the provision of fire protection services and equipment. During my visit, I saw the rollout of the T-Rex aerial articulating platform with a reach of 115 feet, which was just delivered to the Canadian Forces Base Bagotville. It's one of 11 aerial fire trucks that National Defense has ordered from the company in Longueuil. 5 have already been delivered to Army and Air Force bases across the country, from Greenwood, Nova Scotia to Comox, BC. I want to congratulate Aerofeu for having won the $21 million contract, and I thank them for contributing to the security of our military personnel.
Honourable Member for Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, last week United Ways of Saskatoon and Regina launched the province-wide 211 phone, chat and text line, connecting everyone in Saskatchewan to over 5,000 helping services. With a truly province-wide connection, everyone in the province can pick up the phone to connect with the help they're searching for when dealing with life's challenges. 211 connects people with professionals ready to help 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, in over 100 languages, including 17 Indigenous languages. Despite the best intentions of governments and community, finding the service that helps is a daunting task. When individuals and families find services quickly and easily, they are better equipped to meet life's challenges, families and individuals feel connected, and our entire community prospers. Mr. Speaker, I ask all members of this House to join me in congratulating the United Ways of Saskatoon and Regina on launching the 211 phone line, helping citizens of Saskatchewan access the help when they need it. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Yellowhead.
Mr. Speaker, I was shocked to hear that someone had tried to start a fire outside of the mosque in my hometown of Edson. The mosque is a center in our community for a large number of Muslim residents and is utilized by those traveling through the area. I have been there and have attended prayer sessions at the facility. We had a mosque in Edson since 2003, Mr. Speaker. Edson is an inclusive community, and we have many different religious and cultural organizations and have always intermingled and respected each other. Religious beliefs and freedoms must be respected, and as Canadians, we will not tolerate any group of individuals who attack the rights of religious groups in our communities. The Muslim community in Edson is a strong part of the cultural and economic fabric of our town. This action is not acceptable in no manner anywhere in our nation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Surrey Centre.
Mr. Speaker, gun and gang violence has plagued the streets of Surrey and Lower Mainland. Most recently, it hit the community hard with the deaths of 2 teenagers, Jason Juti and Jesse Pungo, who were killed in a brutal targeted hit. This tragic incident brought thousands of parents, youth, and community leaders together and erupted into a Wake Up Surrey rally against gang violence. This community has called for help, called for action, and wants this menace that has plagued its streets for far too long to end. Mr. Speaker, we live in a country with some of the best minds, lawmakers, and law enforcement personnel available, probably anywhere in the world, and the constituents of Surrey demand that they work together to end gun violence on our streets. It's time for all levels of government, community stakeholders, parents, and police forces to work together to make sure lives aren't lost to meaningless violence. We must do more. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions orales. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, last week the Prime Minister had members vote all night because of avoiding answering questions. We voted all night because we want transparency, and he refused to give Canadians the answers that he has. The Prime Minister knows how much the carbon tax will cost families. Why does he refuse to tell them what it will be? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we were very, very open and transparent with Canadians on our plan about how it's going to move forward and how it would protect the environment and generate economic growth at the same time. The details are on our website. We have experts that made calculations. We've been open about our plan on how to fight climate change. What we do not know, Mr. Speaker, what Canadians don't know, is that the Conservatives don't have a plan for climate change. They refuse to provide their plan to fight climate change. That is what Canadians don't know. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the black ink he used to redact his own officials' documents certainly wasn't transparent. We learned last week the lengths that this Prime Minister will go to keep the true cost of the carbon tax from Canadians. Now, we do know that home heating and gasoline prices will go way up under his scheme. Millionaire Liberals like the Prime Minister might not mind paying higher gas prices, but hard-working Canadian families do. Will the Prime Minister finally come clean and tell Canadians how much his carbon tax will cost them?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite likes to talk about those votes last week, but he doesn't want to talk about the fact that they voted against funding for clean technology and green infrastructure, and they opposed funding for Western economic diversification. And that's on top of not understanding that the economy and the environment need to go hand in hand. Mr. Speaker, we've been clear and transparent. The details are on our websites, and our approach in creating a pan-Canadian approach to fight climate change. What is unclear is what the Conservatives will do. They have no plan to fight climate change. That's the climate change cover-up.
The Honourable... Order. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, a new episode of The Caliphate describes horrible crimes committed by a Canadian, Abu al-Sufir. He admits that he committed murders for the Islamic State. He says that he's motivated by ideology and is circulating freely in Toronto. Right now, Liberals are removing tools to deal with terrorists coming back to Canada. How are we supposed to ensure the safety of Canadians? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I have trouble hearing what this from the Conservatives. They cut nearly $400 million during their majority mandate from border services, charged with ensuring the protection of our borders. On this side of the House, we respect the work of security agencies who are doing everything that's necessary to keep Canadians safe, who uphold our laws and our principles. And we will not give in to the politics of fear.
Mr. Speaker, it's this government's legislation that is cutting back from the tools that law enforcement agencies have to protect Canadians precisely from people like this terrorist. Now, this terrorist described a meeting he had with CSIS. He said they had a picture of him shooting a gun in Syria and that his face was fully visible. His admissions should meet the threshold to lay a terrorism charge under the criminal code. Why is the Prime Minister failing to take action to make Canadians safe?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our security agencies take all potential threats very seriously and use the full toolkit of measures, including surveillance, the no-fly list, revoking passports, and laying criminal charges when sufficient evidence exists. The expertise of Canadian security and law enforcement professionals is highly respected and sought out around the world. They actively engage in identifying, monitoring, and responding to potential threats, and Canadians can have confidence in their work. Our security services are doing their work in spite of over $1 billion in cuts suffered under the Harper government.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it's this government's own legislation that is taking tools out of the hands of CSIS and the RCMP. And we are talking about an individual who says, quote, I am becoming more adamant in my ideology. He says it's my own business to deal and overcome the war crimes. Now, this counselor for Abu Haziva has given up. He cites that he has become ever more radical in his ideology, and all the while he is walking free in Canada. Why is the Prime Minister taking away the tools from our law enforcement agencies to keep Canadians safe?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are doing exactly the opposite. We are investing in our security agencies and our security professionals. We are enabling our police officers and national security agents to do their work in a way that Canadians will expect. Unlike the Conservatives, who for years politicized, divided Canadians, and then quietly withdrew funding from the agencies that needed support, we are actually investing in them, we're giving them the tools they need, and we are assuring Canadians that we won't play politics with their safety, that we will instead focus on keeping them safe.
The Honourable Member for Rimouski-Neja-Témiscouata-Les-Basques. According to the last report by Campaign 2000, 1 out of 5 children is living in poverty in Canada. That's unacceptable. And there are children voting in poverty when this Parliament had voted in 1999 to end child poverty.
By Ed Broadbent, this Parliament unanimously pledged to end child poverty, but the facts are the facts. Child poverty is getting worse. Ending child poverty is possible. When will this government demonstrate leadership and take this problem seriously?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I share the passion of the member opposite for this issue, and will actually highlight that those Campaign 2000 numbers, which are so alarming, actually indicate that action needs to be taken. Now, those Campaign 2000 numbers were from 2015, and that's why we brought in a Canada Child Benefit immediately after we got elected that is lifting hundreds of thousands of kids after poverty. A Canada Child Benefit, by the way, that helps 9 out of 10 Canadian families, and that the Conservatives and the NDP voted against. Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue to fight child...
Mr. Speaker, for 6 weeks, 2,000 children have been torn from their parents at the border between Mexico and the United States. The Trump administration's practice is inhumane and forces children to bear the burden of internal policy conflicts. Today, the United Nations condemned this situation and called on Washington to stop this cruel and unacceptable practice immediately. I have a simple question for the Prime Minister. Does he still believe that the United States are a safe third country for asylum seekers? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we're not going to play politics with this. This is an extremely difficult situation. We recognize just how important it is to not mix this up. The United Nations determined that for asylum seekers, the United States remains a safe third country, but we need to do more to protect vulnerable people who are migrating throughout the world. Canada will always be there to do its share, and we will continue to do so.
The United States is forcibly separating migrant children from their parents when they enter the U.S. to claim asylum. This cruel and unusual practice is Trump's way of stopping migrants from crossing. The U.S. also announced that they would no longer provide asylum in cases involving domestic and gang violence. These practices are blatant violations of every international laws. So does the Prime Minister still really believe that the United States is a safe...
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, from the very beginning, I've been very clear on the role that Canadians expect of me, to stand up firmly and unequivocally for our values, for our interests, to protect Canadians and make sure that we're doing well as having a constructive relationship with the United States. That's what we're going to remain focused on. And you may have noticed, Mr. Speaker, that over the past years, we've been very strong in our advocacy, not just within Canada, to be welcoming and as a country for refugees and asylum seekers, but also to promote that around the world, to encourage other countries to understand that people arriving to our shores are a potential benefit to our communities and our...
The Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
Newsflash to the Prime Minister. The Human Rights Commissioner condemned this policy and called it unconscionable. This is destroying lives. If Canada does not step up, then we are complicit. Nearly 2,000 children have been sent to mass detention centres, and over 100 of them are under 4 years old. Will the Prime Minister stand up for migrant children and suspend the Safe Third Country Agreement?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians always stand up for human rights everywhere around the world, and we will continue to. What we will not do is play politics with this. We understand how important it is to be firm and unequivocal as we protect and support human rights around the world, and we will continue to do that, both by example and by engagement with the world. That's what Canadians expect of this government, Mr. Speaker, and that's what we will continue to do.
Honorable député de Louis Saint-Laurent.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal carbon tax is really not a good idea, but worse than that, they're adding the cover-up to this. The Liberals are hiding sensitive and important information for Canadians. They have in their hands a document that says, impact on household consumption expenditures. The main results are as follows. It's starting well, but it doesn't finish well, because the results are all redacted. We can't see any of it. The Liberal government knows it. The Liberal government is hiding it. Why are they not being honest with Canadians about the costs of the carbon tax? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, climate change and its impacts on all Canadians should not be a partisan issue. Unfortunately, when it comes to climate change, the Conservatives continue to demonstrate that they talk big but do little. This government has invested significantly in protecting the environment. Partisanship cannot hide that the Conservatives never had a real plan. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint-Laurent. It's always nice to see somebody read sentences in French that he doesn't really understand. I will say something.
Alors, order. Alors, je demande que l'honorable député soit.
I would ask the Honourable Member to be more careful in his choice of statements. I don't think that he wants to denigrate people's efforts to speak one language or the other. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, I think I hit the wrong button there. You know very well that I'm very respectful of people who speak both official languages, but they have to know what they're talking about. He was referring to the fact, I was referred to the fact that they are big talkers but little doers. Under our government, greenhouse gas emissions went down by 2.2% without a carbon tax. The Liberal government knows how much their tax is going to cost. Why hide the information from Canadians in English and in French?
Ou en anglais ou en français, on doit diriger des commentaires.
In English or in French, you must direct comments to the chair. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we understand very well that climate change is very important. We are working very hard to deal with it.
And territories, a comprehensive plan to address climate change that includes a range of regulatory measures, includes a price on carbon pollution, includes investments in infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, we are addressing climate change in a way that will strengthen the Canadian economy and ensure an appropriate and thoughtful future for our Canadian children.
The Honourable Member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, my question is about the carbon tax cover-up. The Prime Minister said the carbon tax would buy a mythical social license to build new pipelines, but not 1 inch of new pipeline has been built under these Liberals. They've killed 3 viable privately funded pipelines and forced taxpayers to pay for their failures. Other major oil and gas countries and competitors aren't self-imposing harmful carbon taxes, and the Liberals won't even say how much their carbon tax will cost Canadians and their families. When will the Prime Minister finally come clean and end the carbon tax cover-up?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians know that climate change is real and they expect us to take strong action, and that is exactly what we are doing. The Conservatives would rather keep the House up all night playing politics instead of working for Canadians. Mr. Speaker, they voted against millions of dollars in funding to protect the environment and invest in our future, including reducing greenhouse gas emissions, showing national leadership on climate change, transitioning to a low-carbon, innovative economy. Mr. Speaker, Canadians know that the environment and the economy go together in the modern world. Canadians deserve better than what the Conservatives are offering, and that is exactly better as what we plan to give them.
Order. The member for Durham will come to order. The member for Lakeland.
What's even worse is the carbon tax will hurt middle-class Canadians. It will disproportionately harm people on low incomes and the working poor and Canadians on fixed incomes. And it unfairly targets provinces that most directly rely on agriculture and on energy. And the Liberals, they actually do know how much it will cost Canadians and the disastrous impacts that will cascade through the whole economy. But they are doing everything in their power to cover it all up. Right. So when will the Liberals come clean, end the carbon tax cover-up, and tell Canadians how much the Liberal carbon tax will cost them?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, climate change and its impacts upon Canadians should not be a partisan issue. Unfortunately, the Conservatives continue to demonstrate that when it comes to the environment, they're happy to put politics ahead of the interests of Canadians. Last week, they opposed critical funding for the Low Carbon Economy Fund, the Pan-Canadian Framework, the Freshwater Action Plan, the Federal Contaminated Sites Action Plan. Making climate change a partisan issue cannot hide the fact that the Conservatives have no plan to address this critical, fundamental issue. Our government is taking strong action to address climate change and grow the economy in a thoughtful way.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
Also on the carbon tax cover-up, the day after the Liberals were elected, Finance Canada produced this document saying about the carbon tax costs. These costs would then cascade through the economy in the form of higher prices, thus leading all firms and consumers to pay more for goods and services. The memo focuses on the potential impact of the carbon price on households' consumption expenditure across the income distribution. Key findings are blacked out. Will the government end the carbon tax cover-up and tell us what is in this document?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, our government is investing in opportunities for middle-class Canadians. We have a climate plan that will grow the economy and address the issues around greenhouse gas emissions. That is what Canadians elect us to do, and our plan is working. Carbon pollution is dropping and our economy is growing. Since forming government, we have created 60% more jobs than the Conservatives did in the same time in office. But the Conservatives are stuck in the past. Last Friday, they voted against providing money for the Canadian Environmental Assessment Agency, delivering high-quality environmental assessments for major projects. Unlike the Conservatives, who are quick to criticize, they have no solutions of our own. We are working on green solutions that will enhance the Canadian economy.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
Well, one solution would be to end the carbon tax cover-up and tell Canadians what this tax would cost. Now, they can support the carbon tax all they want, but they should also tell Canadians what it will cost to pay that tax. If it's worth it, then what are they so afraid of? I think the reality is that they're trying to cover up the cost, and eventually they'll produce some phony estimate in order to try and deceive Canadians into believing that the costs are not as high as they in fact are. We know that. They stood on their feet for 12 hours trying to protect this cover-up. Why don't they end it today? Tell Canadians what this tax will cost them.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canadians understand that climate change is real and that the government and all Canadians need to take strong action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in concert with our international partners. We have developed a plan with the provinces and territories called the Pan-Canadian Framework. I invite my honourable colleague to read it. It is a plan that will not only reduce greenhouse gas emissions, enable us to meet our international commitments, but will allow us to grow the economy in ways that will ensure that going forward, we will have a great low-carbon economy in the future.
That's right.
The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Mr. Speaker, throughout the country, thousands of working men and women are living in uncertainty, and it's not getting better. The United States are looking at the possibility of imposing customs duties of up to 25% on the auto sector after putting tariffs on steel and aluminum. Do they understand how difficult it's going to be for our economy? The government needs to act quickly. Employees and businesses deserve real measures and real support. When will the government table its plan to protect our working men and women? The Honourable Minister of Economic Development. Our government understands the importance of the auto sector. That is why we have a plan that works well.
Significant investments in key automotive plants and in automotive parts. Companies right across the country, particularly in Ontario as well, will continue to defend the auto workers, will continue to defend and support the auto industry. This is a priority for our government, Mr. Speaker, and we'll continue to make sure we create growth and jobs in this very important sector.
Honourable member for Windsor West.
Mr. Speaker, going from crisis to crisis is not a plan, it's not a strategy. It needs to be tabled right here in the House of Commons. And Mr. Speaker, we know the auto industry is concerned at what's happening right now, but also the boating industry is bracing itself because they are next. They are stuck in the crosshairs of an escalating retaliation tactic that's being considered. Small business across Canada and the boating industry are feeling the heat with rising prices, cancelled orders, and not to mention crippling impacts on jobs and tourism. Now, the minister has decided to make the boating industry as trade pawns and are expendable. So what specifically is this government going to do for the boating industry, the tourism, and the jobs for those people?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, as this House knows, and in a measure that was supported by unanimous consent by this House, our government has announced strong, measured and reciprocal actions from Canada to defend Canadian steel and aluminum workers. We have announced a consultation period so that all Canadian industries, very much including the boating sector, very much including small business, can share with us their views on the retaliation list. And let me just say to all Canadians, our government is prepared to respond.
The member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Nadia Murad, a Yazidi survivor of sexual slavery, said, "I dream about one day bringing all the militants to justice. Not just the leaders, but all the guards and slave owners, every man who pulled a trigger and pushed my brothers' bodies into their mass graves, every fighter who tried to brainwash young boys into hating their mothers for being Yazidi." Nadia is currently trying to have her case heard at the International Criminal Court, but cannot do so without the approval of the UN Security Council. Will the Prime Minister petition the Security Council to ensure Nadia and her people get justice?
Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I, like all members of this House, am absolutely outraged by the horrendous crimes and atrocities perpetrated against minorities in Iraq and Syria, and we have been clear. The persecution of the Yazidis in Iraq and Syria is genocide. We condemn the atrocities perpetrated by Daesh, and we have co-sponsored a UN Security Council resolution to establish a mechanism to investigate violations of international law by Daesh, including genocide, to ensure accountability.
For Calgary Nose Hill.
That is no. Abu Huzaifa is one of the ISIS terrorists Nadia spoke of to bring justice to. The world owes it to her to bring every ISIS terrorist to justice for their crimes. The International Criminal Court can prosecute citizens of parties to the Rome Statute. Canada is a party, and Abu Huzaifa is Canadian. Will the Prime Minister hand Canadian ISIS terrorists over to the International Criminal Court for prosecution?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, let me reiterate, Canada is there and Canada is acting. We are leading to protect action in Iraq and Syria. We have co-sponsored a UN Security Council resolution to establish an investigation mechanism. Accountability is absolutely essential, and that is something that Canada is pursuing. And we are resettling the victims of Daesh to Canada. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. So that means no, Mr. Speaker. The terrorist Abu Huzaifa is doing very well. He really likes where he lives in Toronto because it lets him have conversations with his friends in the Islamic State. In Ontario, he believes he will not have to face the consequences for his murders. He can lie to Canadian Service Intelligence Services and accuse the West of being responsible for the murders he committed. The New York Times was able to collect evidence of these crimes from Huzaifa's own mouth. Why does the minister lack the courage to bring this murderer to justice?
Public safety. Mr. Speaker, Canada's police and security services use all the tools at their disposal to investigate all sorts of terrorist activity to keep Canadians safe and to make sure that justice is served. Obviously, there is a challenge in collecting intelligence and having that converted into usable evidence in court, but our police agencies are assiduous in following every lead to make sure that they can charge and prosecute in every possible case.
The honourable member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. That's the problem, Mr. Speaker. Abu Uzaifa admitted that he had committed atrocities, and now he's living freely in Toronto as though he were a law-abiding citizen. The Prime Minister tells us that Canadians don't need to worry, but his speeches are misleading. Bill C-59, tabled today, ensures that law enforcement agencies will have more difficulty arresting these criminals. And he also believes that these murderers can be a strong voice for our country. Can the Prime Minister tell us if this murderer will soon be arrested, or do the Liberals plan to give him a contract to be a strong voice for Canada?
Mr. Speaker, when the appropriate evidence is collected, it is obviously the police and the Department of Public Prosecutions that makes the decision about laying charges and pursuing a case in court. The honourable gentleman would know that prosecutors and police face challenges in being able to do this because under the previous Conservative government, there were no charges laid against returning terrorists.
The honourable member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, last week, genetically modified wheat was found along a roadside in Alberta. But growing genetically modified wheat for commercial use is not allowed in Canada. The government and the CFIA need to take this issue very seriously. Japan and South Korea have already announced that they will suspend the sale of Canadian wheat. Will the Agriculture Committee heed the NDP's call to hold immediate hearings to get to the bottom of this issue? Honourable Minister of International Trade. Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague for his question. We support Canadian farmers, and we will ensure Canada remains a stable and reliable provider of high-quality international products. We are working actively on this issue, and we are already working with industry and our trading partners around the world. This discovery of GMO wheat is an isolated event. It does not present any threat to Canadians or to our trading partners. Mr. Speaker, I will continue to work with our partners to keep them informed of the situation.
Cowichan Malahat Langford.
Mr. Speaker, it was revealed last week that genetically modified wheat, which is unauthorized in Canada, was discovered in Alberta in mid-2017. Now, Japan and South Korea have now suspended imports of Canadian wheat, which represents hundreds of millions of dollars for Canadian farmers. Concerns have been raised for years about the dangers of GMO contamination, but precautions were never taken. We need answers. Will the Liberals support my call at committee for urgent hearings to ensure that Canadian farmers don't lose further market share?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I can assure my honourable colleague that we support our world-class wheat farmers. We will work with our farmers and be ready to help them with any financial impact they might have. While we remain focused on the Canadian wheat farmers, the Conservatives have voted to take funding away from the Canadian Grain Commission, which is involved in testing, processing, and essential in ensuring that our grain continues to be exported. That is shameful, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Montarville. Order. Mr. Speaker, our dairy industry supports 221 jobs in Canada and contributes nearly $20 billion to our GDP. Our government is standing firm in its support for dairy farmers and hardworking farm families. The Canadian Dairy Commission is essential to the functioning of our supply management system, and yet the Conservatives shamefully voted against funding that commission, once again jeopardizing our supply management system. Can the Minister of Agriculture talk about our government's support for the dairy farmers of Quebec and Canada? The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, and I certainly want to thank my honourable colleague from Montarville for all his support for the dairy farmers right across the country. It is truly sad that last week the Conservatives voted to take funding away from the Canadian Dairy Commission, which is essential for the functioning of our dairy supply management system. The Conservative member from Beauce has already renewed his call for the elimination of supply management, calling our dairy farmers nefarious paper millionaires. Mr. Speaker, we have and will continue to support our dairy farmers across this country.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse, Les Aides-Chemins-Lévis. Order. Mr. Speaker. My way or the highway is the Liberal approach, and they're trampling on provincial jurisdiction, including the jurisdiction of Quebec and Manitoba. Forget about public safety or the health of our young people. They say Ottawa knows best. Will the Liberals respect Quebec and Manitoba and allow them to ban home cultivation of marijuana? Or will they just repeat the same talking points and do what they wish? The Honourable Minister of Health. Mr. Speaker, protecting the health and safety of Canadians while keeping profits out of the hands of organized crime is a priority for our government. Home growing will help displace the illegal market. We are confident that Canadians will protect their plants and cannabis products in the same way that they keep prescription medications and alcohols under lock from their children. This approach is the one supported by most jurisdictions in the U.S. that have legalized cannabis. Thank you. Honourable Member for Bellechasse, Les Aides-Chemins-Lévis. Well, not only is the federal government ignoring the provinces, it's also ignoring the will of their independent senators. But the provinces are worried that Ottawa will not allow them to do what is best for their priorities. In fact, the Liberals are in a rush to get this through. So why work on a shoddy bill instead of working together with the provinces in order to make health and safety more important than Liberal ideology? The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Protecting the health and safety of Canadians is a priority for our government. The current approach, or rather the approach of the Harper Conservatives, didn't work. It allowed criminals to benefit from the system and didn't manage to keep cannabis out of the hands of our children. We thank the Senate for their work, and we agree with the majority of the amendments that they presented. We are convinced that Bill C-45 will give us the opportunity to reach our objectives and to transition towards a legal market. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Caribou, Prince George.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Fisheries has abandoned lobster fishermen with no evidence that the fishery has contributed to any right whale deaths. The Minister has shut it down. He gave them no notice, and now the Minister is refusing to listen to the fishermen who spend their lives on the water and who've been at the forefront of implementing strategies to protect right whales since 2006. These fishermen have done everything that have been asked of them, and now they stand to lose 25% of their income. When will the minister understand that his Ottawa knows best policy is hurting the livelihoods of Atlantic fishermen?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, our government takes the protection, conservation, and recovery of the Northern Atlantic right whale extremely seriously. While conservation measures will have the greatest immediate impacts on fish harvesters and processors, the long-term economic risks of not adequately protecting these whales is even greater. But the Conservatives know this, Mr. Speaker, but they'd rather play politics on this issue and focus their energy on other priorities, like making sure every single member of the Conservative caucus votes against funding the Atlantic Fisheries Fund, which is exactly what they did last Thursday, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Foothills.
Mr. Speaker, Japan and South Korea have now suspended importing of Canadian wheat due to concerns of a GMO wheat that was found by the CFIA. Those two countries combined represent more than $650 million in market access for our Canadian wheat growers. Mr. Speaker, has the Agriculture Minister met with his counterparts in Japan and South Korea, and what is his plan to try and regain this vital market access for our Canadian wheat farmers? And I'd like to mention, before he politicizes this, that in the new budget, the Liberals are cutting $100 million from food safety and CFIA. Wow. How does he make that? How is he going to ensure that our food is safe for our market access?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for the question. When it comes to cutting, Mr. Speaker, Canadians saw last week who voted against everything we were presenting to defend Canadians. They know who voted against. It's the Conservative. But when it comes to that very serious issue, Mr. Speaker, we obviously stand with Canadian farmers. We understand it's an isolated case, Mr. Speaker. We are talking with our partners and allies around the world. I did call the European Union. Colleagues like Minister of Agriculture did call our colleagues in Japan and South Korea. We're doing everything we can. and we're going to continue to work with our farmers. Farmers know they can trust on this side of the House.
The honourable member, order for Churchill, Hewitt and Nukaski.
Mr. Speaker, the year-long failure by the federal government and Omnitrax to get Churchill's railway and port back on track has cost Churchill and our north deeply. Now the Canadian Transportation Agency says the Hudson Bay Railway has a responsibility to fix the line. The federal government recently expressed support for a regional partnership. So my question is, instead of prioritizing an old pipeline, will they work to hold Omnitrax to account and invest in a strategic resource in our north and get Churchill's port and rail line back on track as soon as possible?
Excellent. The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, our government remains totally committed to the people of Churchill and northern Manitoba, and we recognize the importance of the rail line for the community. The agency's ruling is consistent with our government's long-held view that the private owner had the obligation to repair the line when it was damaged. Months ago, the private company did not inform us of the start of any necessary repairs to its line, and we moved forward with legal action.
The honourable member for Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
The Transport Minister has the mandate to improve marine safety, but BC Ferry Marine Workers Union says a new ruling of Transport Canada has left engine rooms unattended. This risks passenger safety on the new Salish-class ferries. With engineers 5 decks above critical machinery and steering equipment, this risks collision. Millions ride these ferries. Can this really be true? Have the Liberals actually got weaker staffing rules for passenger ferries than for bulk cargo ships?
The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, as you have heard me say so many times before, security is my #1 priority. Safety, and it applies not only to rail, it also applies to all modes of transport conveyance, and that includes ferries. When we make a decision about a regulation, it is after very careful thought and an analysis of the risk management involved, and we don't take these things lightly.
Honourable member for Medicine Hat, Cardston Warner.
Mr. Speaker, United States intelligence officials are warning this Liberal government of the Chinese telecoms giant Huawei Technologies is a security threat to the Five Eyes network of Canada's allies. The U.S. is cautioning that Huawei is a grave security risk and add that its equipment and devices should not be used by Canada or other Western allies. Are the Liberals reviewing Huawei's operations in Canada in light of the U.S. intelligence warnings?
Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, as the member opposite knows full well, we have enormous confidence in our security intelligence agencies. They do a thorough job to make sure they protect our national interest. When it comes to Huawei, the members also have some people that work for them that they can probably get a better answer from as well. But when it comes to national security, when it comes to intellectual property, when it comes to our telecommunications sector, make no mistake, we will always defend Canadians and our sector, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Medicine Hat, Cardston Warner.
Security experts, Mr. Speaker, are warning that Chinese companies like Huawei are a threat to our Canadian economic prosperity. The U.S. is moving to ban Huawei. Australia has banned them already from the next generation of 5G networks and also from federal broadband there. In fact, the United Kingdom has set up a special facility to inspect all Huawei equipment coming into their country. In contrast, our public safety minister has said that Huawei isn't a threat. When will the Liberals put Canada's cybersecurity ahead of their political agendas?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I have made it clear on many, many occasions that while I do not discuss specific cases in the House or with the media, the security and police authorities of this country are charged with the responsibility of taking the steps that are necessary within the law and the Constitution to keep Canadians safe and to safeguard the national interests of Canada, and they do that job.
Member for Niagara West.
Mr. Speaker, the Trans-Pacific Partnership is vitally important to creating jobs and growth in Canada. Hundreds of millions of more customers will be able to purchase our high-quality Canadian goods and services tariff-free. It just needs to be ratified by the government, and we stand ready to support it. Canada can't afford to be left behind. We need to be among the first to ratify this agreement. Will the Liberals make this agreement a priority and work to pass it before the House rises for summer?
Right now. Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for his question. As he knows, it is my priority. That's why we introduced legislation earlier last week to ratify the CPTPP. Mr. Speaker, I thank the question because Canadians understand that there's never been a better time to diversify, and we're going to do just that, to open markets, to open opportunities for SMEs across our nations, for communities and for workers. People understand, Mr. Speaker, that we will continue to work hard. They know they can trust us when it comes to international trade.
The honourable member for Dartmouth-Cole Harbour.
Mr. Speaker, my home province of Nova Scotia, nearly 20% identify as living with a disability. That's why programs such as Easter Seals Nova Scotia are crucial. In delivering vocational and life skills programs, they play an important role in ensuring all members of the community have an equal chance at success. Recently, they applied for funding to expand their New Leaf Enterprises program through ACOA. The Conservatives seem to think programs like this and ACOA overall should not receive government funding, so they stood to vote against funding the agency last week. Would the Minister please share with us what we could have lost due to the actions of the Conservatives?
Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member from Dartmouth-Cole Harbour for this very thoughtful question and for his advocacy. He clearly highlighted the importance of this investment, which is crucial for good quality services, and that's why I'm glad to highlight that our government invested $350,000 in Easter Seals Nova Scotia. Funding that was provided through ACOA, Mr. Speaker, but unfortunately, as he mentioned, the members opposite, particularly the Conservatives, voted against additional funding for ACOA. On this side of the House, we will always defend ACOA, including the 32 MPs, Mr. Speaker, and will always stand up for Atlantic Canada.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, the Harrington Lake official summer residence of Canada's Prime Ministers is in need of repair, but a few recent improvements might raise eyebrows among the middle class and those burdened with new taxes struggling to join it. Now, the Prime Minister bought a new personal sauna, but taxpayers paid $4,000 to plug it in. Taxpayers paid an extra $17,000 to groom cross-country ski trails. A new swing set costs $7,500. There are new canoes and kayaks. Mr. Speaker, how does the PM justify these particularly personal benefits to taxpayers?
Honourable Minister of Heritage.
It is the responsibility of the National Capital Commission to do the maintenance of all official residences, and that's why the NCC is conducting much-needed work at Harrington Lake in order to conserve this heritage building. The Prime Minister has paid for recent improvement with personal funds. Also, we know that the building envelope and the HVAC system have reached their life cycle. The RCMP is also conducting work to enhance security, and the NCC is working with all agencies to better the maintenance of all official residences. Thank you.
The honourable member for Oswego. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Families has announced that the Canada Child Benefit will be strengthened. That's all well and good, but mailing checks won't solve the problem of poverty. For example, in the Minister of Finance's riding, 4 out of 10 children live in poverty. What we need is a generous benefit, yes, but also access to affordable childcare for all families. When will we see this affordable childcare? Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
For the question, in terms of the Canada Child Benefit and the Minister's riding that was spoken to, $45 million is being sent to families that need that support. The NDP voted against that. In terms of child care, this government has invested $7.5 billion over the next 10 years to partner with provinces and territories and Indigenous governments to deliver that child care. In terms of housing, the Canada Housing Benefit, a $40 billion 10-year investment in housing to build housing, repair housing, and subsidize housing is all part of our attack against poverty. We just want the NDP to help us get there faster.
Member for Etobicoke Lakeshore.
Speaker, the previous Conservative government ignored some of Canada's most vulnerable. Last week, we saw the current Conservatives are no different than the Harper Conservatives. When they opposed measures like more money for the Canada Child Benefit, more money for parents of missing and murdered children, more money for fighting homelessness, and more money for Canada's seniors. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Family, Children and Social Development tell this House how our government continues to invest in Canadians despite the Conservative Party's continued opposition?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
I'd like to thank the member for Etobicoke Lakeshore for highlighting exactly why Canadians say that the Leader of the Opposition is simply Stephen Harper with a smile. He's not just got a smile, he's got a bit of a smirk when he votes against the Canada Child Benefit, when he votes against boosting the GIS and helping seniors, when he votes against making sure we have child care and housing, and he does it with a smile, it worries us. This government will continue to fight for Canadians and fight to make sure they get the support they need from this government, and we won't do it with a smile the way they do it with a smirk.
Bravo.
Order. The honourable member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, last week Canada refused to vote against a UN resolution that singled out Israel. The resolution had no mention of the inciting role Hamas played in the Gaza riots. Could the Prime Minister please inform this House of the reasons why he told our UN ambassador to abstain from this vote?
The honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, Canada is a loyal friend to Israel. We believe that resolutions at the UN should accurately reflect the situation on the ground. That's why Canada voted for a U.S. amendment to last week's resolution that would have explicitly referred to the role played by Hamas in the recent violence in Gaza. Hamas is a terrorist organization, and Canada calls on the international community to stand up to Hamas, which must cease its violent activity and provocative actions against Israel. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Montcalm. Mr. Speaker, between January and May, over 12,000 asylum seekers crossed the border into Quebec. At this rate, there will be over 25,000 by the end of the year. The Minister of Immigration and his associate, the Minister of Transport, made lovely promises to the Government of Quebec, but for the moment, it's all just talk. When will the ministers take action to ease the pressure on Quebec once and for all? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Mr. Speaker, as you know, we are working closely with the province of Quebec and the province of Ontario to manage this difficult situation. But we are working very cooperatively with them, and we have been able to approve the transfer of some funding to Quebec to deal with the burden that they are currently facing. Unfortunately, believe it or not, last week, the members across the way opposed funding for integration and settlement services in Quebec. Seriously. The Honourable Member for Montcalm. Excuses and promises, Mr. Speaker. That's all we ever hear. They promised a plan to screen migrants by April. At the end of May, they said that there wouldn't be a plan until after the Ontario election. 2 weeks later, still nothing. Now, summer is coming, then it will be the end of the session, elections in Quebec, and there will be still more excuses. When, Mr. Speaker? When exactly will we have a plan with concrete action in order to deal with this screening? The Honourable Minister of Immigration. Our government is determined to ensure orderly migration.
$3 million for further processing at the border, as well as faster processing of refugee claims. In addition to that, to inform the member opposite, we've given an initial installment of assistance to Quebec and Ontario and Manitoba to recognize the pressures that they've faced with respect to temporary housing. We'll continue to work with the provinces, including the province of Quebec, in the Intergovernmental Task Force on Irregular Migration. Our outreach efforts are ongoing and so on. So we're proud of our record and we'll continue that collaboration, Mr. Speaker.
Full member for Nunavut.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Environment and Climate Change. The Minister of Agriculture indicated recently that farmers have received carbon pricing exemptions for on-farm use of diesel fuel and gasoline. No doubt because the government recognized the undue hardship this would cause. The Minister is aware of Nunavut's negligible carbon footprint, unique circumstances, and has seen firsthand the hardship Nunavut youth face. The Government of Nunavut has requested carbon pricing exemptions for transportation, power generation, and home heating fuel. My question is, will the Minister grant these exemptions? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We know very well that Northerners are on the front lines of climate change. Canada's Arctic is warming at twice the rate of the rest of the global average, with real consequences for people's lives. The Pan-Canadian Framework, which was developed in partnership with the provinces and territories, recognizes that climate action will look different in the North. We are committed to working with our partners in the territories to understand and address the unique impacts in the north. This very much includes the incoming Premier from Nunavut, a former conservation officer and minister responsible for the environment. Our government is also supporting clean growth in the north through investments to move communities away from relying on diesel.
Order, please. I would like to draw to the attention of members the presence in the gallery of His Excellency Mr. Kemes Jiwani, Minister of Foreign Affairs for the Republic of Tunisia. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint-Laurent is rising on a point of order. Yes, Mr. Speaker. Throughout the question period, we referred to a report published by the government regarding the carbon tax. I seek unanimous consent of the House to table the report. There is no unanimous consent. Order. It being 3:08, pursuant to order adopted on May 29th, 2018, the House will proceed with the amendments on Bill C-45. Call in the members. The question is as follows. Ms. Wilson-Raybould, seconded by Ms. Haidu, said that a message be sent to the Senate to inform their honours, said that as regards Bill C. May I dispense?